Hello, my name is Grant Kramer and I'm a professor emeritus at the University of Nevada, Reno. This episode is My Backyard Vineyard, Season 2, Episode 12, the season summary of 2023. Let's start first with a review of the growth of the vineyard in the season of 2023, and then we'll follow up with specific issues and problems that occurred over the course of the season. We can see on a monthly basis, showing different images here, how the vines are developing over time, growing vigorously in the spring, and then sort of pausing and declining as we get into the fall, as the vines prepare for winter. Now for the weather of 2023. It was a cool and gray year with a lot of rain. In fact, we had twice as much rain as we do on average. So seasonal development of the vines was slower than normal, not only here in Oceanside, but across all of California. Now we are going to review a few key segments about pruning and training over the course of the season.
Okay, it's now springtime. The buds are beginning to break. Some of them have broken a little bit earlier than others. Some are just beginning to break right now. We have different vines that have been trained previously from the previous season, a little bit different depending on their vigor. Okay, so we last pruned these grapes on March 17th. Today is March 31st, so it's about 11 days. We've had nothing but rain in between then and now. And so I couldn't get into the vineyard, or I didn't want to get into the vineyard because I didn't want to spread disease, which when pruning during rainy times is a bad thing to do. So this is my vineyard. It's getting there. It's May 21st. We're not getting a lot of sunshine. We have a lot of cloudy weather this May, but the vines are growing well. You can see some of them are beginning to flower here, and it's needing some maintenance. I've just gone in here and mowed the lawn. Unfortunately, these vines back here are getting very long. So they're getting too long. I'm going to need to trim them back. Clearly, this vineyard design is going to become crowded as the vines grow from season to season. So I have to trim back some of these shoots to keep a more uniform look to them. Another problem in this second season was that the trunks are still rather weak, and as the shoots grew longer, the weight of those shoots would pull the vine over, so that we had what I call floppy vines. Part of that is due also to the fact that there can be inadequate tying at the top of the trunk, at the top of the stake. Mineral nutrition was another significant factor during the course of this season, as we will discuss here. There were 3 nutrients that showed deficiencies: nitrogen, potassium, and boron. These were identified through soil analysis and petiole analysis. Nitrogen deficiency showed up later in the season as a chlorosis of the older leaves with red veins, typical of the Pinot Noir variety symptoms. Potassium showed up earlier in the season with a yellow margin, as you can see on the left here, and clearly greening up after potassium treatment. And boron deficiency showed up later in the season multiple times with stunted growth, which we can see in this slide, where the internode length due to reduced shoot elongation was very short before boron treatment and a larger internode after boron treatment. In addition, interveinal chlorosis showed up in some of the younger leaves, as we can see down at the bottom. The leaves eventually responded over several weeks by greening up after boron treatment. Okay, let's look at the disease pressure that we had this year. It was a wet and rainy season, so you would expect to see quite a bit of powdery mildew
as a result of all the moisture and cool weather.
So let's look at the treatments that I used for the year. This year, I elected to use a systemic fungicide called Rime, and I applied this at 2 different times on March 15th and then 2 weeks later on April 1st, 2023. And this treatment is supposed to last through the season. In addition, I used sulfur 3 times during the season, first around May 23rd, then June 12th, about a month later, and finally after the tropical storm Hillary. Just for insurance, I used another spray of sulfur to inhibit any potential growth of powdery mildew. And I would say over the season, I had very good success. I saw no powdery mildew, and this is probably a combination of my vines being small and rather open and airy, but also the treatments. We'll see how this progresses in the future years as the vines get larger and more dense.
This year, there were not too many problems with insects, as I was very concerned with
this little guy, the blue-green sharpshooter, which transmits Pierce's disease to grapevines. I had one of these last year, and the treatment for blue-green sharpshooter is imidacloprid, which is a systemic insecticide. This helps to prevent Pierce's disease. I used imidacloprid in the spring as recommended to last for the entire season against the blue-green sharpshooter. However, late in the season, in October, I had a hornworm, and specifically a grape hornworm, that was eating my leaves. So these probably were occurring after the imidacloprid had worn off, as I don't think they would have survived with the imidacloprid working. Let's view a video clip of this hornworm that was not previously posted in my previous video.
Typical of this grape hornworm.
Irrigation was also a bit of a problem this year.
It's evident in this picture here that you can see that the vines at the back by the fence are growing better and the grass is greener there versus the vines in the front. They're responding to the water from my next door neighbor. The grass is growing because of the additional moisture coming from that yard. So I was underwatering my vines on purpose, but they're clearly being restricted by the amount of water I'm giving them, and it's evident that I need to irrigate them more frequently than I have been. This is in part due to the fact that the soil is very heavy clay. The fact that the water puddles up and does not drain very quickly is a sign that it is difficult for the water to move through the soil and get down very deep, which means that the roots will have challenges to go deeper unless I irrigate more frequently and with greater amounts to get the water to penetrate down deeper into the soil. So in conclusion, soil analysis and preparation are very important prior to planting.
In my case, I rushed the planting of my vines. If you go back to my original video, you will see why, as I just made a decision late in the season. At any rate, I did not properly trench the soil, which would have improved the root growth into my soil. And it would also allow me to do a better prep of manure in the soil to increase the drainage and permeability of the soil and establish a better growth of my vines. So I would recommend carefully that you consider doing that prior to your planting and learn from my mistakes. I did not adequately anticipate the problems I would have with the compactness of the soil and the mineral nutrient deficiencies that existed in my soils.
Crowding in the vineyard is a problem because of the 3-foot spacing.
This has caused a number of problems, including the grapevines growing into each other and having to be pruned back to keep from tangling up and creating an issue with a future issue with powdery mildew. But it also has created additional problems for my mowing as the vines snag on the mower and have the risk of breaking the vines if I should catch them. So this requires some extra effort, but it is possible and it is doable. So it's going to require some creative pruning practices in the future.
It is clear that additional fertilization is required, and that will require continued analyses to evaluate the fertilization effectiveness. Continued vigilance is necessary by walking through the vineyard on a regular basis in order to detect new problems as they arise.
A case in point is the hornworms that I discovered at the end of the season and the nutrient deficiencies that continued to develop over the course of the season.
It is also apparent that more frequent irrigation is necessary in my vineyard because of the compactness and heaviness of the clay soils.
The compactness of the soil is causing the vines to grow more slowly, which then requires that I irrigate more frequently to keep the soil moist enough so that the roots can penetrate through the soil. However, too much water can suffocate the roots, and we know that grapevines don't like wet feet. So in my case, the rootstocks that I have chosen, SO2, are adapted to clay soils and therefore can withstand a little bit more moisture. So I have a bit of a balance there to help compensate for that. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and the video series for this season. This is the final video episode for this season, season 2. And if you like this video and would like to see more videos like this, then I encourage you to like my channel, as it'll make it more visible to other people and encourage people to watch this video. I also would encourage you to subscribe to my channel, as I will continue to produce more videos like this one on viticulture, on winemaking practices, and on grape varieties. Have a great day.